Thanks for joining us this morning as we wrap up Tolkien Week, celebrating the 20th anniversary of the theatrical release of The Return of the King. Boom. This morning, we're going to dive into the mind of the author of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, otherwise known as Ronnie or Tollers to his compatriots. Who is he? And where did he get all that good information, all that good stuff that shaped his fantasy stories? And not only his fantasy stories, but an entire genre for decades to come. This morning, we'll look at his influences, the mythology of Middle-earth, and the top 10 Christian themes in his writings. J.R.R. Tolkien's influences. Now, I want to make a quick note about there was a biopic that came out in 2019. It was named Tolkien, and it limits his influences to three things. It was pretty much the influence by his mom's storytelling, by falling in love with another orphan, which both of those were true, by forming a brotherhood with three other misfits at school, and the fourth thing, the trench warfare, World War I.
Is there a fifth thing?
Yeah, I guess you could say he was telling stories to his kids. But one thing that it did not have was his Christian or Catholic influences in his writings. And just go over that. And they got a lot of flack in the story for basically taking Christ out of his life. You could say that, well, they treated it the same way as he did his own writings. It was just embedded into his life story. And I say, wrong. You really do need to show that influence. I want to play a game this morning. And the game is, I'm going to say an influence or something that happened in his life. And then I'm going to ask you then to say, well, it influenced his stories in the beginning, and then you drone on for about 45 minutes, and we all fall asleep. No,
I'm not that bad.
You're not that bad. You're good. That's why you're very entertaining. That's why you're here. So I'm going to bring up the first one here and say his rural upbringing. J.R.R. Tolkien's rural upbringing. Did that have any influence? He spent the most part of his earlier years in the country.
I'd say that had a heavy influence. Definitely, if you look at the Hobbits, at the Ents, his love for nature, a lot of the underlining story elements that we saw in The Lord of the Rings definitely would come from that. The industrialization versus the natural beauty.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Those would be heavily influenced, definitely, if he played in the woods a lot when he was a kid, out there and enjoying that nature.
Okay, good job. You get a penny for every one you get right. Okay, so he's going to be rich by the time this is over. I'm sorry, the dollar will be devaluing faster than we play the game, so we can't do that. Number 2, the loss of his parents. He was orphaned. His father died when he was only 3, and his mother died when he was 12. Was there any influence? Let me just put it this way. Were there any characters in The Lord of the Rings that were orphaned?
Oh, let's see. Smeagol.
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
No?
It was voluntary.
Yeah.
Orphaned. Aragorn.
Aragorn, yes.
Aragorn would
fulfill
that role.
Yes. And Elrond was his sort of adoptive father that took him under his wings. That's one reason why he knew Elvish so well. All right. Anybody else?
No, that's all that comes to mind in my head.
That's good. That's good. You still get a penny. So then the answer would be Frodo himself. Was orphaned, and he was taken in by Bilbo. So you can see where that would be an influence on. You took 2 main characters in the story, right?
Yeah,
2 major characters. Bonus question: was he friends with anybody who was orphaned?
Was he friends with anyone that was orphaned? You're talking about main characters?
No, I'm sorry.
Him himself? Yes,
Tolkien himself. Okay, and who was that?
That was one of the things that Amazon got right.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And who
His
was
future wife.
Oh yeah, that's an answer. That's not the one I was looking for, but that was a really good one.
Well,
Yeah, it was. It was.
Right.
You get extra points. Yes. But there's another famous friend that he had who is also orphaned.
Ah, is that C.S. Lewis?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. C.S. Lewis experienced the loss of both of his parents at a relatively young age. His mother died of cancer when he was 9.
Oof.
And his father, 2 years later, died from kidney disease. So, among all the other things that would have bound those two together, their love for languages, ancient history, specifically medieval history, and so forth, that would have also been another binding experience for them. Number 3, education and linguistic studies. Tolkien showed an early aptitude for languages and his love for philology, which is the study of words, and ancient languages. Did that have an impact on his writings?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's kind of one of the catalysts, one of the major catalysts for the Lord of the Rings, for the Hobbit, is that. And if you read the books, you get a lot of singing. Definitely in the Hobbit, you get a lot of singing with the elves.
That's true.
You could even say that kind of influenced even Out of the Silent Planet, Perelandra. And
oh yeah, that was in there too.
Yeah.
Yep. So
that was C.S. Lewis's books.
Right.
The Space Trilogy.
Yep.
For those who don't know.
Yep. And so his impetus, his reason for writing the story is to give a background for a framework for his languages. Believe it or not, that was one of the primary reasons. His academic pursuits included work on Old English literature and Norse mythology and medieval texts. Tolkien translated Beowulf, and that was eventually published, but not during his lifetime. It was done posthumously by his son, Christopher Tolkien, in 2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty recent.
Yeah. To come out for that. Okay. And I'm going to check comments here. Do we have, because we do have a lot of good morning. What's that?
Right there.
Okay. We do have a lot of good mornings here. I'm not putting necessarily the good mornings up, but this one, hooray. Theology of Tolkien. I once read a book coming up with different theories and ways you could fit Lord of the Rings into different religions. Excited for this. Now, I did watch a documentary last night, and I thought it was garbage. You had a bunch of professors who, it's amazing how many people study Tolkien. Just
oh yeah, there's
him
a whole
himself.
Field now.
Yeah,
just the study of Tolkien. It's like,
so they had some professors on, and some of them were saying, well, myth itself, all myth is good because in it is truth. And I'm thinking, dude, seriously, sometimes a story, just because it's a story, doesn't mean it's good. You can have falsehood in story. You can have falsehood in myth. So in this professor was just drawing all these conclusions from it. I thought, come on, man. We're going to have some clips from Tolkien in a little bit, and he would disagree with some of the philosophy that I think these people are putting out. Right before we go on, Aragorn and Frodo were orphans. Yes. Okay, we got that. All right, next one on our list. Number 4, friendship and fellowship. This one's some of these are so obvious. It's not even funny. Yeah. Tolkien formed strong bonds of friendship during his school years and later with the Inklings, which we'll talk about, which really is kind of a cool story all behind that, and literary group that included C.S. Lewis. So, friendship, did that make any difference? Impact?
No.
No,
there's no friendship in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Not at all. And who
Sam doesn't exist.
Yes, who was our favorite Hobbit that got voted highest?
That's their favorite Hobbit. I didn't say it was mine.
Well, okay, that's true. That's
my favorite Hobbit.
That's true.
I'm not going to pick on that.
No, and Schmeagol doesn't count. So, the favorite Hobbit was Sam, and that was because there's so much, it really came out the friendship that was there, man. Everybody wants to have a friend like Sam, right? Everybody wants to be a friend like Sam, I guess. So then you have that was an obvious one. Number 5, World War I. Did that have an influence? And there was a surprise in this one. I did a little bit of research. I thought, I didn't know that. So, did World War I have an impact on the story?
Absolutely. There were a lot of war imagery that was put forth in this.
Yes.
A lot of destruction, a lot of deforestation, a lot of
Mordor.
Mordor being some related to actually being Germany and its expansion and the comparison of that to World War One and actually World
Definitely.
War Two.
Definitely.
The
Both wars.
there.
Both wars. He was a commissioned officer as a second lieutenant with the Lancashire Fusiliers in July 1915. Now, side note, personal note for me, my great-grandfather also served with the Lancashire Fusiliers, but he was not in World War One. He missed that and was joined just shortly after that, went down to South Africa. But that's pretty cool, man. It's like they were buddies. My great-grandfather and Tolkien. I'm geeking out.
They
didn't even meet. But I don't care. They both lived on the world, so that's good enough for me.
Wow.
Right.
If
cool.
that's your classification there.
Yeah.
I guess Joe Biden's your
same
best friend.
planet. Oh, shush. So he fell seriously ill with trench fever. And it was a disease transmitted by body lice because of the unclean conditions there. But he had trench fever and was not able to fight. Now imagine if he had.
It would have been either he could have died during it, of course, considering how
Yeah.
many people did. But
Yeah. And then all these stories would be gone.
Yep.
And his influence then on C.S. Lewis would also have been gone too.
Yeah.
So we would have lost a lot
C.S.
there.
Lewis was also over there serving in World War One too. First day, Battle of Somme.
Yeah. So he did see actual warfare. He was
thrown in the deep end.
Yes, Battle of the Somme. And I had a great uncle who passed away during that one. Next one, his Catholic faith. Tolkien's Catholic faith, instilled into him by his mother, was a profound influence on worldview and moral framework of his works. What do you see any Christian themes within the books?
The foundation.
Okay.
The foundation of the world is built on the Christian concepts. I don't see any real strong Catholic concepts coming through, but the foundation itself is generally built on Christian concepts.
Yes. And so I got a couple of comments on that last one where we were talking about his experience in World War One. Adam says that it's that providential timing again. He has missed it by that much. So he was not in World War One, and he also adds a small eucatastrophe. Dude, you are like a Tolkien student. You're bringing up all these Tolkien words. That's fantastic. No, seriously, that's one of the things we'll talk about later too.
Well, think about that. From his point of view, he was probably disappointed that he wasn't able to serve. Not able to, because he enlisted. He obviously was an officer.
Well, was he enlisted or was he drafted?
Oh, that's a good question. I do not know.
As an officer, and I believe they would have had the same requirements then. He would have already had his degree from college, his university studies completed, so that would made him an officer. Which is the next one we're going to hit is his academic career. Number 7. What kind of influence did his academic career have on his writings? Now, let me just back up and get a little more detail with it here. Tolkien had a distinguished academic career serving as professor of Anglo-Saxon at Oxford University.
It's basically pulling in the myths, pulling in what stories were told, making this going. I mean, the elves concept was something that was before him. Granted, he gave his own spin to it that eventually defined the entire genre.
Right. Yeah.
But he did put his own spin on the concept of elves, the concept of dwarves. If you look at Norse mythology, dwarves are completely different from what's in Tolkien's work. But what is in Tolkien's work is what is commonly expected in our culture now, whenever it comes to it.
Yep. So his scholarly interests, including his experience in medieval literature and ancient languages, contributed to the depth and authenticity of Middle-earth's cultural and linguistic aspects. Number 8, love and marriage. I'll give you a little bit of a hint here. Tolkien's romance with his wife Edith. They both enjoyed a very long and happy marriage. So, was there any influence, do you think? Do you see anything in the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, a couple marriages in the Lord of the Rings that
Right.
ended up being, and both of them ended up being long. You have Aragorn's marriage. You have Sam's marriage.
Yep.
So Sam goes off. He comes back. He gets the woman he wanted at the beginning.
Yep.
And gets married to her. Has
Rose.
kids. And,
Gets Rose.
Yep. Has kids and lives a full, happy life.
So there is and this is probably what you put with the Catholic influence there too, is that there is a real strong, even though he was an orphan, there's a real strong emphasis on family relationships. Huge. And we really need that today. And so there was that, but also Faramir, he's
he gets married.
Yeah. The in the books you have the niece of King Theoden. She's like just like in love with Aragorn. Right? She's just like all over. Oh, so yes. And then he gets, no, listen, I got an elf girl that I really like her and I want to be with her. And so then Faramir ends up with her, and it's actually a pretty good thing. But even deeper, it's not really talked about so much. It's more of the background for the book, and that is there's a character, Luthien and Beren, that was inspired by his love for his wife, and it's even mentioned several times. There's a lot of parallels between his wife and Luthien. His wife Edith Mary Tolkien, and the character Luthien Tinuviel there's a lot of similarity between those, and that did have a big impact on his book. So next one, I'm going to see if we get comments. Another one from Adam here. I think academic background made the world he made feel real. The world, yes. So it's very easy to do a lot of world building when you're an author and to get sucked into it. My wife says, leave it alone. No one's going to know all this stuff. She doesn't really talk like that, though. But yeah. Okay. No. But yeah, the world building is important with science fiction and fantasy to really have that there and to make it like you said, feel real. So the love that he had for his wife, academic career, love and marriage, creation, number 9, creation of Elvish and Dwarvish languages, just on the heels of what Adam said there. Was there any influence that he had from his being a philologist and a studier or a student of ancient languages? That much is obvious. We don't even need to look into that, the impact that it had. He had a deep passion for language inspired by his love for Old Norse. He created this complex system of languages for the elves in Middle Earth, elves and dwarves. And you can actually go and study these languages themselves. The same thing goes with that. And I'm not even going to ask you this question because this is just so obvious. Norse mythology and themes. That's all throughout. The Norse mythology, with its rich tapestry of gods, heroes, and epic adventures, deeply influenced Tolkien's mythopoeic creation. So all of this came into creating Middle Earth and all this background that was done. We're going to get an interview with Tolkien here in just a little bit, and he's going to talk about how the depth of all this, where this all culminated from. Then we did 10, right? 11, creation and Middle Earth's pantheon and epic quests and heroic themes. And we're not even going to pose these as questions necessarily. All these were just, all these just came right back in to what we're talking about. And I'm not even going to mention them, go into depth with it at all. But all these elements were influences into his writing, and you can see where it all build up. So all that said is background for the second section of this live stream, the mythology of Middle Earth.
Oh, this gets crazy.
Yeah, we still need to get that echo chamber. So I cannot I cannot go into all the detail of this because this would be several live streams, and the depth that he had for all this was just, it was just crazy. And so, oh shoot. I want to share. Okay. I was going to share an image that shows, and I don't have it set up here. I apologize for this, but it showed the branching out of all the different beings from Eru Iluvatar, the supreme being in here, to the Maiar and everything else that's underneath it. You have Balrogs and you have Shelob and you have everything constructed. It's a really cool graph. The size of this, it would not fit on the screen. It was too huge. I would have to pan around and just look at it. But I think I might be able to put a link for that in the description for this. So for anybody who really wants to check it out, you can. But there's going to be more than just one of these graphics floating around. There's several of these that you can pick up. But it's a huge image, and how they're all tied together. Just a little bit mind-boggling. We will not go into all that depth and just kind of give it a bit of a summary. I'm just going to keep on clicking.
Please link. Yes, please link.
Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. I had that. We had so many other things we were putting up this morning. I forgot about it. It actually is up in the background, but I don't want to pause and stop and do all the technical stuff to put it on. And then we got Spider Soldier. Okay. I did have the thing that he said there about them being orphaned. So the first thing we can talk about with Tolkien's mythology, we have to start at the beginning, and that is his creation myth. In the beginning, Eru Iluvatar, the supreme being, initiated the creation of the world by introducing melody to the Einar, their angelic beings. So you have the supreme being, Eru Iluvatar, and then you have these angelic beings. He teaches them how to sing. And then creation then is made. The process of creation is him starting it and them participating in it. But the participation is, with Tolkien, is through words, right? And then, you have the Christian creation where God speaks and it all comes into existence. Well, this is singing. And do you know of another story?
Yep.
Where the creator sings the world into existence?
The Magician's Nephew.
And what is that from?
That is one of the Narnia books.
Okay.
From C.S. Lewis.
Right. His buddy C.S. Lewis also had a creation, I would say myth, because it's all, and myth is not necessarily being false. It's just a way to put a story out.
Myth story about singing.
Right. A creation through singing. Where God, and I could actually see that. I could see that. And in this one here, unlike in Tolkien's story where Aslan does it himself, walking back and forth, here you have Eru Iluvatar teaching the angels, and the angels are a part of the Einar. I shouldn't say it's not a direct representation, so I probably shouldn't say angels, but they are something like that. And Ainur, excuse me, I mispronounced that, contributed to this music, and it was harmonious expression of the divine will. However, one of them was in rebellion.
They wanted to add discord to it.
Yep. Melkor, the mightiest of the Ainur, sought to introduce his own themes, disrupting the harmony and introducing discord to the music. Not to be caught off guard, Iluvatar allowed it to happen and then twisted it into a harmony. So you got the discord that's happening there, and he takes that and makes it into good. So you can even see this ongoing theme that it goes throughout the rest of the story about good, and then you have evil twisting. You have the elves, and then you have the orcs that are twisted. You have all this stuff that's happened, boom, 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 throughout the history of Middle-earth and more, all through the three ages of Tolkien's Legendarium. So Iluvatar allowed Melkor to have this discord. He intertwined it as a symphony that reflected the struggle between harmonious themes and the discordant ones. From that music, the world was shaped and formed. So That's number one. Number two, you have the three ages. And this is worth talking about because you say in Middle Ages, Third Age is ending. If you were to say, when did the Lord of the Rings happen? Was this like Middle Ages stuff? No. If you were to put it on the Earth's timeline, it would have been before, it would have been in prehistory. So you imagine all this in prehistory. Now, would that really work because all their technology and stuff like that? Would it be prehistoric?
No. But
I would say possibly because you have Potbelly Hill. Oh gosh, what's that name? In Turkey, they just found this just a few years ago. Göbekli Tepe. I'm saying it wrong. It was a discovery of like these Stonehenge ruins that have been buried for thousands of years, unearthed. And it's even more articulate than what they have in Stonehenge, the carving, and there's a bunch of other things that are going on with this. This predates the pyramids by thousands of years. How many other civilizations that are in prehistory that we didn't even know existed, that maybe had technology? If we look around at our technology today and say, 5,000 years from now, for everything that's existing right now, would you even know that we were around? So I don't know. It's just a possibility.
And throughout history, we've had times of technological advancement that have been lost.
Yeah.
That we have lost. There was batteries way back when there's just basically clay batteries.
Mm-hmm.
And those were discovered, I think, in Iraq a few years back. But that's what they were. And they confused us because, again, this is from way long ago. But yet this is
Egyptians. I think even Egyptians. I think they had clay pots like that were
so
batteries.
And then that was lost. You had plumbing, indoor plumbing in some Roman houses that again was lost for a time period and didn't reemerge for quite a while.
Ankylithera mechanism was discovered, and this was around Jesus' time actually, where it was this clockwork mechanism. It's like, whoa, where did these? And the Romans, they had rudiments of the steam engine that weren't used. I'm going to go ahead and put up some comments here because I think we're going to have some pretty sure prehistoric man spar more advanced. We are. Yeah, they had the iPhone 73 back then, in 10,400 BC.
I think one of the things that we do a major disservice to, and this is a concept that's been, I don't know if it's just been pushed by public schools a lot, but thinking of people back then as stupid, as they were just not intelligent enough.
The hubris of the modern era elevates ourselves so much. They're so much better, but
no, they're just as brilliant as we are. We've just figured out more stuff.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yep.
So
yep, we got a good discussion going on here in the chat. So you have so basically, I mean, Tolkien just made this up, and we're not saying that this actually happened and stuff like this, but there's still a lot even under our feet. There are civilizations that have been buried that we may not even know about. And if we talk about rising sea levels after the last ice age, a lot of civilizations would have been coastal because we're near water. We might have civilizations that are buried on the continental shelf that we just haven't discovered. That they're cities, entire cities that were there that have been taken over by water.
Well, that's it. On top of that, our historical evidences are so few and far between. The whole history of Alexander the Great, being written down, I think it was 200 years after his life. That's where we got our first documented proofs of Alexander the Great. And it's like, he had a huge impact in the region. And that's when we get our first
How many
accounts.
Records were lost? I had a discussion with somebody. This is off topic, but we'll just go ahead and throw this in here anyway. I had a discussion with somebody on the comments. They were saying, well, the Bible is just, hundreds of years later was written by people that were not even around at the time and stuff like that. And I said, no. even in the thumbnail for that live stream, I had the earliest extant manuscript for John.
Mhm.
And this was between 125 to 150 BC. And it's a manuscript, so it's a copy of the original.
You mean 80?
80, sorry. Not,
I'm about to say
yeah,
BC. I'm
it
like,
was prophetic.
whoa.
It was prophetic.
Whoa, math
So,
don't work
no.
there.
So it was 80. But that would have been like 50 to 75 years after, something like that, after John wrote it. When you compare that to Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, the earliest partial manuscript that we have is 800 years after it was written. And you don't get a complete manuscript for both until like 1100 AD. So
the Battle of Troy, huge event in that region. I mean, that was basically their form of world war. And that wasn't documented until 400 years after its event. And we didn't even think it actually existed. We thought it was just a gosh darn myth until recently due to archaeological discoveries.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that was the proof of that happening. But when we get to Jesus, we get to his time period, we get to his actual events and his death, we have so much overwhelming evidence.
And not just within Christian literature,
No.
but extra Christian literature, like Josephus and other Roman historians. I mean,
Roman historians writing about how much they hate Christians and how stupid this Christians are.
Yeah.
And this is what they believe. I think it was the regent of Turkey wrote about it. He's writing to Rome about basically killing these Christians and getting rid of them. But he describes what the Christians believe, that they believe that in this Trinitarian concept.
Yeah.
And that was from, I think, the 1st or 2nd century.
Yeah.
So it was
Very
early, right there at the beginning. And that's proof that, yes, Christianity had the Trinity there.
We could say so much more. And I'm thinking about the Hittites and so forth. But we're getting off Tolkien. Good discussion. We'll have this discussion later. So he had 3 ages. He divides Middle Earth into these ages. The first age was marked by the events in the Silmarillion, which was a book that actually came back in the 70s, wasn't it, originally, because it was kind of incomplete and stuff. And then he had the second age, which featured the rise and fall of Numenor, which it brings it to the third age, which the Lord of the Rings is at the end of. And so the third age is the backdrop. So all this work and history and stuff, he drew this out just for the languages. But, we have the benefit of being able to enjoy them.
And there's so many good stories in that could be pulled out. I guess that's one of my major disappointments in the whole Rings of Power thing.
Missed opportunity.
So much there that you could have pulled out. So many references you could have made that would have made the fan base excited about this. You already had a great fan base behind this. All you had to do is not screw it up. That's all
you had one job.
Well, they did the same thing with Star Wars. So I mean, not this group, but the concepts did the same thing with Star Wars, where it's like you just didn't have to screw it up.
Yep.
And you would have made millions with this. But yeah, there's like dragon, the first ever dragon that was made, and he dwarfed Smaug. Smaug was like a child or baby compared to him, size wise. He's huge.
And on that chart, which I will post the link to, it does. I believe it comes that one dragon that you're talking about is in direct descent from or lineage from Melkor.
Yeah, Melkor makes it.
Yeah.
So he creates the concept of dragons, puts it in there. I think actually the first one was not a walking dragon. It was a later version that was the huge flying calamity.
Beast. Yeah, calamity.
He was the calamity of the age.
Oh, small calamities of calamities. Yes. Sam Rogers, you joined us. I thought you were working. Just got back from work. Tell me, guys. Let me guess, you guys are about to finish. No, we're not about to finish.
We're all done. Goodbye.
Now that you're here, yes, we will be. So no, we got kind of off onto a tangent talking about early civilizations, but now we're back onto the influences of Tolkien. You missed that one, but we are now talking about the mythology of Middle Earth, creation myth, the 3 ages we've just finished, and now we're talking about the Valar and the Maiar. Now, of all the different groups of critters and creatures and beings and sentient, blah, 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 whatever, that are in his legendarium, the Tolkien's legendarium, there's only a few that I'm going to pull out here. And this is one of them, the Valar and the Maiar. The Ainur, now remember, the Ainur were the angels that were involved, basically angelic beings that were involved in the original creation, where Luvatar gave them the ability of melody and all that kind of stuff. So you have the creation that happened. And then you got the next level down. And these are the Valar and the Maiar. And they descended from the Ainur. And the Valar are like godlike beings who oversee different aspects of creation. So they're like really high up. And the Maiar serve the Valar. And the Maiar have influence over the course of history in different aspects. So I'm going to ask you this question. I don't know if you know, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but who is Maya? Maya is the singular form of the noun Maiar. Who is a Maya in the Lord of the Rings?
I don't know off the top of my head. I used to actually remember it.
Okay.
It sound very familiar. I used to have all this stuff memorized way back when.
Okay, and I'm going to check the I love the Silmarillion published.
Yep,
it was published 77. Good.
Yep.
Good answer. Thank you for putting that up there. I knew it was the 70s, but
there you go.
Okay. The thing about Melkor creating the dragons reminds me that thought some people have that Satan created dinosaurs. I disagree, but it's out there. Yeah, I would disagree too. God created the dinosaurs.
God's the only creator.
Satan has only the ability to twist, not to create. And that might be one of the reasons why he's so mad at us, because we can create eternal spiritual beings called babies. And he can't do that. Gandalf. Yes, Gandalf is one of the Maiar.
He's one of the Maiar. I didn't know that he was the specific one.
Yeah. So not only him, but all the wizards.
All the wizards
would be Saruman would have been one of them.
Yes.
So they were, and then Sauron would also be on that level. He's under Melkor. Okay. So Melkor would be one of the Ainur, and then you got him underneath. In your face, Satan. Yeah, you can't create. Yeah. I believe that actually is a point of envy for him. So you have the Gandalf and the wizards. These are all the Maiar, and you have Sauron and the Balrogs. They're all on that level. Yep. So Sauron is not higher level. Melkor is up above him. So now Gandalf and Saruman, the wizards, are a different group called the Istari. I'm not going to get too, please believe me, I'm not going to get too deep in this. So this is a group of Maiar sent by the Valar to Middle Earth during the Third Age to assist the free people in their struggles against the power of Sauron. So Gandalf and the other wizards have an assignment to assist the free people of Earth. So that now maybe that makes it a little bit more clear, with Gandalf running around and looking at old records and trying to help these different groups while he's puffing on his pipe and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm going to make a little bit of a comparison here before we move on to the next section, and that is looking at Tolkien's mythology and comparing that a little bit to C.S. Lewis's mythology in the Space Trilogy. So C.S. Lewis,
a lot of similarities between the two.
Wrote 3 books that were actually science fiction. So he did his fantasy with Narnia.
You have them in the background right there.
Yeah, I do. They're over here, right here in the background. So he wrote this Out of the Silent Planet, Paralandra, and That Hideous Strength. Paralandra is one of my favorite all-time top books. If you ever have a chance to read, it's fantastic. We might do a review on that sometime, by the way, with all the...
We did.
I know, but do it on this channel, because we did it on...
It's on my channel.
It's on your channel. We can
we already did it.
Yes, we did. It's on your channel. So I'm going to compare the two mythologies, and the Valar are like the Oryarsa in the Space Trilogy, I believe, because the Valar are higher, and they have much larger responsibility. The Oryarsa were archangels over a planet.
Yes.
Okay, so you have the Uarsa of Venus, of Earth, and of Mars that come in. And apparently the other planets also have these angelic beings that are in charge of the entire planet. And the Maiar would be like the Adila, which would be the general angelic forces beneath them. Now, it does appear in true Christian theology that there is a hierarchy of angels that are there too, that you just don't have like one type of being, but there are several beings in a hierarchy where you have the cherubim around the throne and so forth and so on, which is really cool stuff. I'd love to do a study on that sometime with you guys. It'd be fantastic. All right, moving on to, we're still in Middle Earth mythology and looking at elves, men, and dwarves.
Before we move on, though, talking about Gandalf being at the same level there as the Balrog, that does take that whole fight to a whole nother level.
Yes.
Where they're both facing each other down. They're both this sort of, and well, at least originally, this angelic sort of creatures that might have interacted with beforehand.
Yeah.
And now they're coming into Moria and having this duel.
Right.
Back and forth.
And if you think this long history that these guys may have had, Gandalf and the Balrog might have sat down for lunch one time before the Balrog fell and was twisted and turned evil.
So you don't, yeah. So the question is, you know what? There's a lot of history that
there is a lot of history
potentially be there, and even if there wasn't that history, there's still that aspect saying, "Hey, this is, you know, you are the twisted version of what I could have become. You are a traitor."
Oh yeah, comparing those two together,
that would be on a personal level. You are a traitor.
Now, one thing I'll mention here too, between this, with all this mythology and this legendarium that he's done, that there is not an equal between these two. And we're going to look at an interview here in just a couple of minutes where he talks about this. This is not a yin yang thing. This is what's different from this, whether it's Christian influence and not a pagan influence. That darkness is just not the opposites of lights. That they're both the same, and they're just balances between the two. And we talked about this in a previous video, that light or goodness overcomes darkness or evil. It's not the same thing. It's in a totally different camp. Evil is just the absence of this goodness that is there. It's twisted, just like darkness is the absence of light. So men, elves, and dwarves. Elves are the firstborn children of Iluvatar, immortal beings that are awakened in Middle Earth. Men, the second children, are mortal and destined to inherit the world. That's why the elves are leaving at the end of the Third Age. And dwarves have a distinct origin of their own, which is a little bit funny and too much to go into for today. We're not going to be able to go that deep.
But that goes into the whole why dwarves hate elves and elves hate dwarves.
Yes.
Their feud goes all the way back to their creation.
Yeah, it is rather deep. The last part we'll go over is Melkor's corruption. Now, Melkor, remember, he does the discordant singing at the beginning. Melkor now, in his name gets changed to Morgoth, similar to Satan's name was originally. Totally slipped my mind. What's his name? Angel of Light.
About Lucifer?
Yes, thank you. Lucifer was being of light. Lucifer actually means yes. Lucifer, I forget my mental name if you weren't here to tell me. Okay, his corruption. He rebels against Iluvatar and the other Ainu and corrupts Middle Earth. There's a struggle between light and darkness that becomes the central theme to the rest of the stories. Okay, here is a quote from, this is a 1962 interview with J.R.R. Tolkien. And I only have a couple of clips here, but this is listen to the question that the interviewer asks him in this.
Created in which the situation would be explained why there were no, for instance, churches, rituals, and temples.
I want to play that one more time because it's a little bit difficult to understand him. Being an English professor of English language, I'm sure that he is speaking the English language better than I am, but I'm still having a hard time understanding.
You do believe then that there can be a state of absolute good from which most people do fall?
It said, for instance, there's no religion in the book. There isn't, for reasons which are partly aesthetic, partly auctorial, and partly the history. This book, so-called Lord of the Rings, comes at the end of a long series of stories I've created in which the situation would be explained. Why there were no, for instance, churches, rituals, and temples.
So he goes on to explain in this case why there is not, you don't have a whole bunch of religion or Christianity. You don't see this in here because this is done, like we said, pre-Christian, pre-Jewish era. You don't see this type of thing involved. So the incarnation, death, burial, and resurrection of Christ happens way after these stories. You do not see that in here. Here's another section, another part of the interview where he talks about, this is what I was talking about with the absolute evil.
Creates the Dark Lord, who seems to be the apotheosis of it.
But he said in the book that he himself was not evil to begin with.
Ah, he fell. Then, like Lucifer.
Yeah.
So you're...
Well, he's several stages down from Lucifer.
Okay, I want to play that one more time just because it's so hard to
This
catch.
world that you yourself have made, the complexities that exist mostly, it seems to me, outside the creatures of the world. There is an absolute evil and there is an idea of absolute good. Would you agree? Mordor, after all, is a principle of absolute
I
evil.
don't believe in absolute evil, but I do believe in absolute good.
Yes.
Let's say,
If you don't believe in absolute evil, why did you create the Dark Lord, who seems to be the apotheosis of it?
but he said in the book that he himself was not evil to begin with.
Ah, he fell. Then, like Lucifer.
Yeah.
So you're...
Well, he's several stages down from Lucifer.
Okay, so no absolute evil. There's only absolute good. And the interviewer was saying, but there is absolute evil. He says, no, there's not. And this is where I was talking about earlier about the whole mythology thing. Oh, all mythology is good. It's all truth. No, it's not. There's a distinction between. That's why we have mythology, is to be able to show the distinction between good and evil and other aspects like that. So we talked about J.R.R. Tolkien's influence, his mythology of Middle-earth. Last section we're going to talk about is the 10 Christian themes, top 10 Christian themes. Now, we discussed some of these previously as we were going through the Lord of the Rings trilogy and with the Hobbit. We'll pull these into a different section here. Number one, moral framework. Tolkien's Christian worldview provided a strong moral foundation for Middle-earth. Concepts such as free will, the consequences of sin, and the redemptive power of sacrifice are woven into the narrative. And that's where he talks about his subcreation. Now, this is the second part, subcreation. We are not, they're saying, well, you've had this wonderful world that you created, Tolkien, in this series. And he's saying, I am not a creator. He identified himself as a sub-creator. He was saying that a creator, basically, the idea is that it's ex nihilo. It's coming out of nothing, that God created the world out of nothing. Well, we don't have that ability, but we can sort of rearrange things and create something new out of existing material. And so that's what he was talking about, that as that God is the ultimate creator, but we are almost like the Iluvatar. In the Einar, working with him in the creation process. And there is something really fantastic and just like, wow, you get to work with, almost like working with your father on these materials that are going on. It's like, this is so cool to be able to do that. And this is where I had the last interview with him. And I might have to repeat it again because I'm glad they have the subtitles to be able to follow.
I was going to use that illustration. That's what I did last. Because, as I've said elsewhere, I think that if you wish to push me back into what semi-theological or philosophical back, I think because being made by a creator, one of our natural faculties is wishing to create. But since we aren't creators, we have to sub-create. Let's say we have to rearrange the primary material in some particular form, which pleases us, which may it isn't necessarily a moral pleasing, it's partly an aesthetic pleasing.
So here's his concept. So this is the second one that we want to talk about with the idea of the top Christian themes is we are not creators, but we are sub-creators. We participate with him in this. Number three, the nature of evil, the presence of evil and the fallen nature of characters like Sauron and Saruman in Middle-earth can be interpreted in the light of Christian theology, emphasizing the fallen state of creation and the corrupting influence of power. You look at Boromir for that, the idea of corrupting with power. And with the corruption of power also comes number 4, the redemption and mercy. Now, these are not exclusively Christian concepts. You can also have these in other worldviews and philosophies and religions and stuff. But these are all put together in here, definitely Christian thought. Themes of redemption, mercy, and possibility of moral recovery are present characters in even Gollum himself. Yeah, Boromir, you have the recovery with him, at least in the movie. But you also have Gollum. These elements echo Christian concepts of grace, forgiveness, and the potential of redemption. And I'm going to check some again, put these up on the discussion here. Just throw them up. Who doesn't love the Ents? Yeah, once they get moving, they're a little slow. They're not hasty. Can Satan rearrange genetics?
Actually a good question.
Wow.
We'll have to look into that.
How much influence do demonic forces have over the material realm, and at what precision can they do it? Because that's pretty precise.
And then at that point, you could still have them, even if they can't do it directly, they could probably do it indirectly through humans as pawns.
You know what? I think that would be secondary. I think that would be like asking a tank. Well, I mean, asking if a tank can, can it crush a tin can? Well, I guess it could crush a tin can, but it has another more powerful destructive force. And I think the more powerful destructive force here is the enemy is not so much the manipulation of genetics, but would be more like manipulation of our minds. Mm-hmm. You know, think of like Wormtongue going in and deceiving and corrupting Theoden in such a way that Theoden keeps an entire civilization, an entire kingdom from getting involved in the war. Just getting them to surrender instead of going in there and fighting them physically. It's almost like a Sun Tzu art of war type of thing. And I put up a couple more here. I think so in some way. Okay, this is a discussion you guys are having, but I don't think it was doing it before the flood, though. Okay, but yeah, I think the greater influence is the influence over someone's mind. If you can convince the enemy is a tiger that has been defanged, and if he can do nothing more than guerrilla warfare at this point, and if his greatest power is the power of deception. If he can get us to think that we're not capable to do something when we are as children of God, then he's won the war. Next thing, eucatastrophe. And we talked about this at length before, so I won't go into very much. The idea that a sudden unexplained turn of events leading to a positive resolution. This concept believes that it reflects the belief that in the Christian notion of incarnation, the idea of God's entry into the world brought about a profound and unexpected turning point in history. And he does talk about this in the interview as well. Number 6, the virtue of humility. Humility is a virtual emphasized in, probably more emphasized in Catholicism than in Protestantism, and as a characteristic like Frodo and Sam exemplify this virtue as they carry out their humble sacrifice. In roles of the destroying the ring, they sacrificing themselves. They're going in order they have no way of ever getting back. They're saying like, this is a suicide mission.
And they come to accept that. Well, at least in the movies, it's very clear. It's shown that they're coming to accept that. It says there's not going to be a way back. We're done here.
No,
this is it. We one-shot deal.
And I think that's an advantage that Christians have over someone who is not a believer, is that this is not it. Yep. This life we have is only temporary, and there's a lot more after this. So if there is something worthy of sacrificing this life for,
we'll take
it. Do it. The sacramental view of reality. Now, this has to do, again, specifically more with Catholicism, but Tolkien had a sacrament view of reality, which meant seeing the material world as a means through which divine is encountered, and specifically through the Eucharist, and you can see this with the lembus bread. that there was something conveying something more than it was something that had more just than nutritional value in Philomen's belly. How many of you eat them?
Five. Yeah, the Hobbits, man. The Hobbits.
That's right. Gotta love them. Next, we have the respect for creation. This goes without saying. The Tolkien's love for nature and the world that he's created, Middle-earth, where landscapes and environments are vividly described. He loved it. And finally, the last one is hope and providence. The theme of hope is central to Tolkien's work. You have Sam in Mordor looking up in the sky, and the clouds part, and he sees the light, and there is hope. This world may end. It is doomed for destruction. There is this downward spiral where things will eventually decay and end in darkness and a cold, dead future. But then you have new hope for a new world to come. One last thing that I want to go over, and that is the types of Christ. And hopefully, what are we looking at? Good. We have time for this. This is the best. I put this off from yesterday. Okay. And let me ask this as a question. Is Aragorn a type of Christ?
Yes. Well, an attribute of him.
An attribute.
An attribute
of Christ. Okay. So remember, Tolkien didn't like allegory specifically because it ends up suppressing the story. And you don't get this one-for-one relationship in what he has. Even though we talked about his creator being in this mythology here, he's not necessarily saying that this is God. This is a relationship to God and so forth. So in what ways was Aragorn Christ-like?
Yeah, well, he's a returning king. He was the reestablishment of the kingdom itself. He had to take a lot of sacrifice in order to get there.
There you go.
He had to take a lot of personal pain and suffering, and this wasn't necessarily the path he wanted.
That's right.
For himself.
That's right. Just like Christ before in Gethsemane, struggling with this whole thing. Is this, Father, not my will, but yours be done? And submitting himself. Now he still won the Trinity. I know this is something that Muslims have a hard time with, but have you ever had second thoughts yourself on anything? Hello, doesn't mean that you're different people.
The aspect of the garden itself has a lot of parallels to the Garden of Eden, where in the Garden of Eden it was let my will be done, not yours.
Yeah.
And in this one, the second Adam submits and says, let your will be done, Lord, not mine.
Right.
So there's a lot of parallel there that
right. That's a good
even
point.
Even if it meant nothing more than that alone is huge.
Yeah.
And really just ties it together real well.
The parallel between the two gardens.
Yep.
Or the first Adam and the last Adam. That's a really good comparison. So we are looking at the comparisons here. We have Aragorn. How about Gandalf? Is he would he be like a Christ-like figure in maybe some way?
I'd say yes in a lot of.
He kind of died and was risen again, right?
Died, came back. I wasn't keeping track of it, but I think it might have been greater than 3 days. I don't know. I don't think it's specific.
And he doesn't do this one-for-one thing. And so I want to show there is no one Christ-like figure comparable to C.S. Lewis's Aslan in the Narnia books. Now C.S. Lewis has Aslan is a picture of Christ. But the characters Gandalf, Frodo, and Aragorn exemplify the threefold sacrifice office of prophetic, priestly, and kingly aspects of Christ, respectively. So I'm going to put this graphic up and show you all three, and we'll just run through this. So you have this threefold messianic symbolism: prophet, priest, and king. This is throughout Christian literature from way back. This is nothing new. They're talking about the threefold ministry of Jesus. He was a prophet, he was a priest, and a king. And by the way, Muslims was just say he was just a prophet, but no, there was aspects of the whole priest thing. And it's like what happened with Islam is like they're wholly amnesiac when it comes to the sacrificial system in the Old Testament.
That's because Muhammad had no clue about it.
He didn't know what was going on.
I think
right?
Samuel Green, a friend of mine, pulls that out. He basically says if you just took the Bible and took all the aspects of God wanting to be with humanity and the whole priestlyhoodness and the whole dwelling in the temple and take all of that out, just rip that out of the Bible, you get something similar to the Quran.
Wow. Yeah. It's just like what happened. That is definitely in the Old Testament. It's a huge part of it.
Yeah. It's like
where did they go?
Of it, and it's all gone.
Levites, they're no longer there. So you do have these different roles that Jesus fulfilled. He was a prophet. He spoke forth the word of God. He was a priest. He provided the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice himself before that. And obviously he was the king. He was a messianic fulfillment of the line of David. You can trace his line of David, his lineage all the way back to King David himself. And he would be the rightful king like Aragorn coming in. So we'll look at different aspects of it. You have the sacrificial death that is made. Gandalf dies in Moria. Frodo symbolically dies under the Morgul knife. And then, in Mount Doom itself, there is that sort of death that takes place. And then Aragorn, he takes the paths of the dead. Remember, he goes to the king and it says basically it's like almost like going underneath the ground. And then he comes back up, working with the dead, releasing the captives, so to speak. So you have that aspect. In terms of resurrection, Gandalf reborn as Gandalf the White. Frodo, hailed by Elrond, and Aragorn reappears in Gondor after going through the paths of the dead with that one great scene where he comes up with the ships. And
I love that
Gimli and Legolas come off the ship, and all these guys, these orcs sing, "You're dead," and then all the spirits of the dead just come out and just flood right through and take them all out. It's a fantastic scene. The last aspect is they all share this, and that is as Savior. All three helped to save Middle Earth from Sauron. This is put together by Peter Kreeft. I want to give him acknowledgement, and links are below for that.
Fantastic.
So, all right. Any other comments? Anything else that you guys want to say? Because I want to pretty much wrap it up there, and we'll be talking about things that are coming up next week. This whole thing from this Tolkien week has been really fun, and it's been a little bit different from how we've handled our reviews in the past.
It's been fun having a theme.
It has, and especially with the interaction from you guys. And let me see if there's anything else new here. I think it was him for the flood. Okay, that was previous. The spider almost killed Frodo. Sam thought that Frodo was dead for a moment. Yeah, I guess that was another situation where he was at least close to death. So I don't know if you say that there was a resurrection there, but he brought it back. And that's where that time where Sam had to carry the ring, at least carry Frodo, who had the ring, and then bear the ring himself. And he was unscarred by it. I mean, that's what's so cool about Sam, that he had all that.
Yep.
So coming up next week, it's fantastic working on this. It's been great. Next week we have
Why
then? Why was the birth of Christ in the 1st century AD? Because the calendar said 0 AD. He had to be there then.
He had to be there. It was a thing.
That's why. Yeah, the whole countdown, the whole BC thing. It's like then he's got to be there, right? No, but why? Was there specific things in terms of culture, in terms of the prophecies that were done, in terms of the state of Israel that did have a temple at that time, 70 AD, they didn't have the temple. All these things coming together, the language, all this. Why then? Why was it culminating? Can we look back sort of like, Monday night quarterback and say, well, I would have done it a little bit differently, but no, why was it done there? It really looks like this is the fulcrum of history. And it's not just an accident that we name our calendar AD and BC or Common Era or Christ Era. Somebody correct me on that. That was pretty good. Christ Era or before Christ Era. That was good. So let me look at a couple of comments here before we roll on. Sam is the Hobbit.
Sam is the Hobbit. Yes. I think it's making correction.
Did I say something wrong?
Thank you guys. It's been great.
Yes, yes. Awesome stream. Good. I mean, okay, so we have that coming up next week. We're going to be going over all of putting Christ back into Christmas next
That'll
week.
Be fun.
I want to
theme.
I want to hear. Yes, another theme. I want to hear from you guys. We got a poll going on right now. What Christmas movies are your family or friends' traditions that you guys are going to be watching? We're gonna put those up on this list and pull them out next week and do a review like we usually do, pulling out themes, Christian themes, and points of discussion. We would all be able to get around the table and say, Frodo was a type of Christ, and then go on from there.
Yep.
So until then, say adios, and we'll see you next time.